And when I had my first near death, and went back into that space, I was there for days. Like just something like
Wow.
you had like days, and like it was so long that I was there. I learned so much and came back, and it was 6 minutes. Hey,
Hi, hon. Hey.
hey, we're back on. I mean, I'd have to say for myself, it has been quite the ride this last week. And we were talking about this a little bit beforehand on connection and relationships. And for me too, is trust and the overwhelm, because my trust and overwhelm had been with the connections that I had. So it's a good topic to bring up. How do you feel about that?
It is. Yeah, definitely. When you said it, I was like, oh, I have questions. I always like to break down what that means to people, like when they're representing that, because trust is such a big word. I suppose it's got so many facets to it. So, in some ways, I'm a very trusting person with the universe, with my higher self, with allowing things to flow. But then, in same respect, like we was just saying, I like to have some form of clarity and I like to have some form of like grounding and knowing of like, what does this mean? What does this look like? And so sometimes to trust in the unknown, I'm kind of good at, but I'm kind of not good at it at the same time. So that's why I wanted to ask what it meant to you.
It's meant so many things to me. And first off, I want to say, like, if I bring in the actual vibration of trust right now and everything it's been perceived in my reality, it's been bastardized. So I didn't like to use that word. I was like, nah, screw
Yeah.
that. I'm not working with that in and of itself because like it's been so placed in lack, I would say, for me.
Hmm. Hmm.
Like trust it,
Yeah.
it turns around, it's out of control, whatever the case is. It's a religion related. I don't know. So I'd have to say, like coming back into a trust in self was for me, if I break it down, it's me taking ownership for myself and having companionship with my inner child and my body and my soul. Like I would say that.
Oh,
Do I have the ability to be in partnership and surrender to each of those facets, um, and take a step with that?
that's interesting because that is a totally different like narrative on it, on that word. And maybe surrendering is a better word, like we said earlier, like you also said, because surrendering does flip the narrative from giving something away.
Yep.
Whereas when you trust, for me, it feels like an exchange. It's like you're having to give away a sense of something, a part of you, a vulnerability part of you, a sacred part of yourself that maybe we are not allowed to give that away at some point in our inner self. Because, like you say, maybe the trust or the surrender is actually listening to those inner parts of self that say, maybe it's not safe to show that person this part. And maybe that's the trust and peace. So yeah, I think that's a really cool breakdown of what these words mean and stuff like that. Because yeah, I suppose when I think about it, it's like when I used to go wild swimming all the time,
Uh-huh.
and had a deep fear of water, which was hilarious for someone who fell in love with wild swimming. But I had a deep fear of open water, like
Yep.
the
Yep.
ocean, rivers, lakes, all of it. I was deeply afraid, and yeah, I really had to face that and literally trust, surrender to the unknown in terms of like, you just take that first step out and you actually start to swim. There's like a million emotions going on. Your body is going into pure fight or flight. Like, why are you doing this? You're panicking, you're cold, you're then afraid. I am because I'm afraid of the water or what's in the water or what I don't know, and all these other things, these unknown factors going on. And I just think to myself, you can do this. Like you can do this. And it's just that pushing through and finding one singular narrative amongst all of the other narratives that are there. They do exist. They're not just on mute. They are shouting at me, get the fuck out of the water, what are you doing? And I'm like, no, no. And I just center into a point of, no, you can do this. And then when I find that rhythm in the water swimming, then it's like joy, freedom,
Right.
liberation, all this such powerful emotions, which if I'd have just walked by the side of the water or even got in and got out when I got them feelings of panic and fear, then I would have never experienced that. I would have never experienced what it felt like to push past that unknown feeling, to kind of push past the barrier of that fear of the unknown, you know. And I remember every single time I do it, it never got less scary. I still felt scared. I still felt that fight or flight. I still felt that moment. And if I'd go to a new place or a different place of swimming, or there was someone around, that, you know, all the different factors would trigger different levels of anxiety. And every time it was a test to just push through the unknown and push through those factors and find a little base point. And on some days, I didn't manage to push through as far as others because I wasn't feeling as like physically, mentally strong. You know, my body was feeling some days tired and less powerful and less empowered. I was on my own, you know, whatever the case was. And some days I didn't get as far out and I didn't feel as much joy. You know, some days I got a little bit out and thought, actually, no, I am going to get out. And I went back. But each time taught me something different. Right. Every single time I went swimming. And so that's kind of my analogy. You know, I love my analogies, but this is my analogy for this experience. I kind of mastered that one, but I've yet to master the fear of the unknown in the emotional world and what those potential consequences might look like in my personal or, you know, immediate vicinity. Like, what does that look like to me? And that's still very unknown, and that still makes me feel really uncomfortable. And so it's applying the same wisdom to alternative scenarios.
I appreciate that perspective so much. And from like how I'm perceiving that is like taking a tiny step and focusing on whatever type of point you want to. This is what I do too. I focus on a singular point. And it can take a while to do that because the nervous system right off the bat is like, ah! No,
literally.
I'm not.
Say what now?
Exactly. And it takes a while. For mine, it's heights. It used to be heights. I just did not.
I'm not going to do that either.
Was not a thing for that. And so it's really cool because I took it really slow too. And I mean, over years and years of like, what does a height mean to me? Like, what am I actually afraid of? Like, what happens if I do fall? You know, and some of it was really cute because it's like, oh, I'm just gonna get back up. Cool. Like, no, you know, that was my focus point. But I noticed the other day I went up to the mountains and I was just doing some meditation and I went into a cold plunge. And I got out and I was running and jumping on these roots that were on the side of the trail. And I was swinging off these trees and coming back and like was super excited about it. And I stopped for a second. I was like, I would have never been able to do that.
Yeah, powerful.
A while ago. It was powerful. Like I was not terrified at all. And it was off the side of a cliff, really. And like I did it a few times and was not even thinking it that it was off the side of a cliff. Like it just didn't even like register until I was done. And I was like, so we would have never been able to do that. And I broke it down for myself and my body. I'm like, okay, well, what was that was working its way through? And it was the pure joy aspect of it that I focused on versus the fear. And so that was like my focal point and like my inner child being super excited because she actually loves swinging off trees and she loves certain aspects of heights and trusting that facet of it because she was excited made the whole story shift for trust.
Beautiful. So it is that awareness, I suppose, in mind, which is a beautiful thing. But I think it brings challenges sometimes, you know, like not being able to fully sit in that joy and sit in that inner child without feeling extremely uncomfortable because it's such an unfamiliar energy for me. Like I can experience fun and joy, but on certain terms. You know, it's like when I'm out dancing or when I'm wild swimming or, you know, in certain energies in ceremonies or, you know, they're like my allowed times of joy. And don't get me wrong, I experience joy throughout the day through music, but it's a different type of joy. It's like happiness and joy rather than like inner child joy. You know, there's a difference between excitement and playfulness and childish energy. Like I very rarely go to that frequency because it's not felt able to exist in me since being a child, most likely, and, you know, teenager, adult. And so it is such an unfamiliar energy that I actually don't know how to even navigate it. It just feels extremely uncomfortable. And like the inner judgment and the inner shame is like, oh no, I can't act like that. Or it's like, I don't know, it's just such a big thing. Like it's a whole deal. But, you know, it ties really to even like, you know, into plant medicine ceremonies. I am, one of my biggest things is I don't allow myself to lose control or whatever you want to call it. Like I like to be in the body. I like to be in the experience. And it's most likely because I don't want to be out of control in a way that I can't be perceived, like I can't be navigating that energy, you know. Does that make sense? I
Yeah,
don't know if
like
I'm explaining
your
right. Yeah.
body, like having, yeah, no, it totally makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say like with plant medicine, see for me, like I do the same thing, but I wouldn't call it control. I would call it like I'm actually in my experience. Like,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Well,
be in my
yeah.
experience. I would I would say like I've had the perspective of like that's control. You want to like relax and you want to let it take you where it's going to take you. And I'm like, no, because here again is my thing is like all of that is so constant for me.
Hmm.
Like I
Hmm.
don't need to be in that 24/7. What isn't is that like I'm in this beautiful body who wants to hold it. Like she wants to be in
Yeah.
perspective. And so to be able to just work with the body and be like, no, I'm going to be here right now, which also means that as the body's experiencing, I'm going to go through like the deepest, darkest shit. Right?
Oh, wow, that actually gives me a whole different perspective on it, you saying that, you know, that's really interesting.
Yeah,
I really like that.
it's like giving myself permission. I was talking about this the other day where I was sitting with somebody and just being present with them and they had some deeper stuff come up and I was like, give yourself some freaking permission to let that, whether it's murderous, whether it's like just, that really deep part come up and experience it and go through the eye versus like it's there and like it's not, it's feeling a little bit dark and I can just transmute it. I'm like, you can do whatever you want to do. Don't get me, this is an infinite possibility.
Hmm. Hmm.
And also from my perspective, if I have a part like that and I'm like, say I'm sitting in plant medicine and have like a dark sorceress that comes up or something like that, I'm gonna like beat it and be like, hey, I'd like to play with you. Let's
Interesting. Okay.
let's have a
Okay.
dance with this right now because obviously it's an aspect of me. I'm not gonna deny it. It's
Yeah.
reality. It's a
Yeah.
part of
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what is she saying and how deep do we want to go? And does that mean emotion? Yes. Does it mean grief? Yeah, absolutely. Does it mean alchemy? Yes. That part might not want to be a part of me anymore and it wants to shift into something else. But at the end of the day,
Hmm.
I'd rather go through the eye, whatever it looks like, to embody that piece of myself. So I'm not just like, sitting. I know there's that dark piece of me right
Bypassing.
now. Yep.
Yeah.
It's real uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna.
I get that. No, that makes a lot of sense. And you made me think about quite a few different things there because I always thought it was actually avoiding the experiences by trying to be in the body, but maybe it's actually the opposite, like you just explained, because I always thought, is it a fear of leaving the body? That's probably why I use the word control, because,
Mhm.
obviously my whole life, I knew there was more and there was other things, different frequencies, higher and lower, for a long time, but not knowing what they were. And I was never drawn to do anything as a teenager other than drink a little bit of alcohol and then smoke a little bit of smoke when I was older. And that was it. Like I genuinely never felt drawn to do anything else until going into my 20s when I found the little ceremonial shrooms. And that was the only thing I'd ever felt energetically connected to as well, because I felt like there was something telling me you cannot lose control of your body, whatever word you want to call it. You cannot
Sure.
leave the presence
Sure.
of your energetic vessel because it felt not safe for a really long time. And I've seen people out that took different substances that were not in their body then. Like I watched their soul check out for a little bit, like just take a back seat while they were going and doing what they're doing. And I got told I am not allowed to do that at any given time. Like it just felt like an unsafe thing to do without having the knowledge of how to come back, how to tether your soul, how to connect, how to
Right.
clear energies, how to do, all these different layers of things. And I didn't know any of that growing up as a teenager. When I got to my early 20s that I learned that stuff. And so, long story short, I've had only 2 experiences in my life where I've ever felt like not in control of my body, and that was with ceremonial shroomies. But I had the most extremely beautiful one and then an extremely terrifying one. And so I had the yin to the yang. I had both the positive and negatives. And I think for me, one of the biggest things I ever got taught was you have to allow yourself if you're wanting to go, which I was kept wondering, why can everyone around me experience things and then I could not even experience anything? And I was like, why have I got this block? It's clearly a spiritual energetic thing, you know, and I've met other people that experience this. So this might give a few answers if you are one of these people that can take something and not see or do or experience anything, and everybody else is floating around talking to the trees, and you're like, what now? You know, like, yeah, it's, I've definitely experienced that so many times. And I was like, there's something wrong with me, but there was not something wrong. It was my inner self not allowing any experience. And so when I sat with the inner child, like you say, that's why we're going back to the whole original point of the trusting word and the surrendering. It was sitting with those aspects of me and asking, what is going on with you that makes you feel like you can't experience anything, you know? And that's when I learned that you don't have to experience this whole wild not be in your body at all every time you have a ceremony. Like, you can be present in your body and you can enjoy that and you can journey with that and still be fully present and still feel like you're representing yourself in the way you want to represent, and not feel like, you know, people call it the beer fear, you know, like when you've been on alcohol and you don't remember what you've done and then you feel like you're being stupid and whatever. I don't know, I've never had experience because I've never even allowed it with alcohol either, so it's something I've had a limit with. But yeah, anyways, the point is that limitation to go, I feel that is a spiritual and mental like choice. It's a conscious choice, and it's also based on whether you feel safe in the environment, whether you feel safe around the people, whether you can be vulnerable. All these aspects matter when you're going into ceremony. And when I actually finally allowed that self to a journey, it was genuinely one of the most beautiful things ever. And again, the next time, the most terrifying. But then since that, I've also not felt drawn to do it since. And I've journeyed, but not in that way. I don't feel drawn to journey in that way at all because it feels too overwhelming a little bit. And I always find it interesting that I can talk this work and do this level of energy work, but yet then in the physical realm, if you present me with something that's just slightly out of my comfortable zone as the human and how I want to be in my human, it just completely freaks me out. And I kind of reflect that question back to you. If you experience similar things, is that like a human block, a human trauma thing, or is that like a fear-based thing?
I think that's a broad perspective for anybody in their own experience. And I've experienced it that way too. I've experienced both ways. I experienced leaving, I've experienced
Yeah.
coming back, I've experienced it fully in my body, and I've played back and forth a little bit, and then just grounded into liking my experience where it's at and not needing that to go into any type of place or space. Um, I would say for those of you who are watching this and you're kind of in the space of integrating your human, and that's what I'd say, like working with your human, being in the human and the facet of what the human wants. The way it experiences is something to very much so be in an embracing of. So if you take some plant medicine and you sit with it and you're not experiencing anything, I would say that is exactly what your body's wanting to do right now. And
Mm-hmm.
that's okay. And that might mean, yeah, that might mean there's judgment there. There might mean like it's a little afraid to experience other things. And also, like, there's nothing wrong with that experience right there. I think that is one of the most beautiful experiences is being super present in, like with medicine.
Yeah.
Like it is like I have done probably more of my work being present in my body than having an offshoot.
I agree with that in different ways. When I'm physically processing it, it's like you can real time integrate it.
Yep.
Sometimes when I've had an offshoot experience, it takes me sometimes weeks, months to process that
Yep.
overall experience. So I totally agree with that. But I've sometimes learned more in one session from an offshoot because there's so much more
Right.
capacity to
Right.
kind of, you know, less limitation of the human because
Totally.
you're kind of out there. So then you can come back with more, but it takes longer to integrate back.
It
That
can,
makes sense.
much so. Yeah, yeah. I know
Mm-hmm.
like when I was younger and even into like my deep shamanic phases, I would have like a guardian with my body if I were to go experience in other places.
Yeah.
And then of course like coming back, I did that when I was little. And then when I was in the deep shamanic work, like I trusted my body and where I was at if I needed to go. And then I always made sure that she knew like what the landing was, like what it looked like, what it felt
Yeah.
like, so that my energy could come back in. Did it take longer to integrate? You betcha. There was so much information. My body was like, I'm gonna just, I don't know.
I really don't feel like you can explain that feeling. Like I once came to my friends the next day and I was like, I have no words to explain this experience. there genuinely was no words for that. So I still struggle now, and this is like 4 years later. I still don't have words for that experience. It was one of the most profound experiences, and what the most hilarious thing about it was, but actually genuinely mind blowing, was this whole lifetime happened. So and this whole life experience and this and that and this and that and this journey and this and this and this and this and this and this and this. And then we went outside and then we was back inside and then we back on the couch and then we sat down and then I looked at the time and it felt like, no joke, 3, 4, 5 hours maybe.
Yep.
45 minutes. And I was like, nah. I was like, this is not human. I genuinely had no words to explain that we just time warped. Time warped of universe. Like,
Totally.
if I needed any tangible proof that time was not real, which I really did not need much, that was it, because I genuinely realmed to worlds and back and like literally spent so much physical time though doing different physical activities. That's what got my brain like being upstairs, being in the kitchen, being in the living room, went outside, went back up the street, went and then you're telling me after all these hours that it was 45 minutes. I was like, that's not right. This
Yep.
is not okay. And my human really had to process that experience. But it was the time I met source energy for the first time and probably for the only time in the physical body. And wow, every time I think about it, I still get emotional when I experience that energy for the reminder time. It sounds silly, but love is not a word that covers it. It's like just pure, you'll know obviously, but it's
Yep.
just
There is
pure.
literally no words that we
No,
could ever get to. I know.
I whisper.
It's like that. My first big experience with that, I remember it when I was little, but like my little self already knew it, so it like wasn't any different.
Mm,
She was like, "Yeah, that's
yeah,
I already know that." And then I went through my programming stage and like the shutdown stage, and when I had my first near death, and went back into that space, I was there for days. Like just something like
wow.
you had like days, and like it was so long that I was there. I learned so much and came back, and it was 6 minutes. 6 minutes.
No,
Yep.
no. So you had one of them too, one
Yep.
of them time traveling experiences. It's just mind blowing though, isn't it? Like you just think, I was like, my dad told me a story where he went, and his wasn't even a ceremony, his was a dream. And he said he was there for a week. He was held captive by some witches in a cabin for a week. And he said, I could count in the days and the days and the days and the days. And he said, then he woke up and it was one night dream. And he was like, hey, he was convinced he'd been gone 7 days. He kept thinking about the cat not being fed, and I was like, "Wow, that
Yep.
is real deep. Like to think that the cat's not being fed for 7 days. Like that was really, you really thought he was there for a week. Like that is insane. But as I still feel like a part of me is processing them experiences and always will be,
Oh, totally.
because they are so non-human, and trying to integrate that into a human. I was with a friend that I don't speak to now, and I wasn't a mum then, and she was a beautiful little 3-year-old little earth angel starseed. She was beautiful, and she said to me, Anya, I don't know how I'm expected to go be a mum after this. And now being a mum, I totally get it. I was like, if that would have been like last night, and then you expected me to get up and go make breakfast, I'd be like, say, well now, like the experience that we gained, the otherworldly experience and the knowing and expansion. Like I'd been doing spiritual work for years, but the sheer amount that I gained in one night, and for me it was confirmation. I knew a lot of it. I'd seen it, knew it, theorized it, got the gist. But then when I saw it, like physically, it was like, oh damn, I understand now. It was not like a theory anymore. It was tangibly, I just got it. But yeah, I get me excited because I think journeying is so individual and so unique. And as much as I was saying I have my little fears about it, I do, but I find I still push through it. Like we were just saying, going back to the beginning, original point is pushing through them. I could have had that. I had the beautiful one, and then I had a really terrifying near-death experience. That when you said that, I was like, yeah, that's exactly what I would call it. That's exactly what I went through. And yeah, that took years to process. Absolutely years. And I've actually never journeyed fully since then. So I'm still processing that now.
It's a very personal journey, and for me, I've done all of those. I've also served all of those. I've been in it for a very long time. That was like a big part of my identity. That is like now
Hmm.
not. And it came in just really strong that that's just not where I am right now. I don't
Hmm.
that like I've already worked with them. The thing is with those two is like they always take you back to that same point of source every time.
Right.
Like it's the same thing every time. And for me I'm like, I already know that. So if I already know that, my body was like, we're not doing that anymore. We're not serving anymore. We're not going back to it. It's for us now to like fully embody it and then create what we want and allow that to come in now. We don't have to do any of that anymore.
There is a resonance with wanting to be in the human and wanting to physically experience it and wanting to be
Yes.
more present. It's because, like you say, like we said ourselves, we do a lot of the astral work, and we know in our souls that we've done and been doing that for so long.
So long. Yep.
And we waited so long to come into this human experience in this way,
Exactly.
like not in time sense, but we had such a lot of energy built into having this experience in the human that a lot of our souls are kind of so engrossed in being in the human. And again, I love plant medicine. I think it's wonderful, but
Me too.
I think finding the right time, balance, amount, people, all
Yep.
them things are the biggest factors of using plant medicine. And if you're going to do it, make sure you're not rushing the experience to force things. Like, make sure it's just a natural call rather than I have to learn this, I have to get to this next bit, I need this, da, 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 da.
I need
Like,
to
it
have this
needs to be.
experience. This is where, my friends are
Mhm.
doing it. Like I've been in all of those cycles and circles and worked with it. And it's just a very personal call. And I would say anybody who's like, well, who's like looking into that, feel how much into your body, like does your body actually want to do it? Do you feel like that's something that's in flow with you, or are you trying to get an outside perspective versus an inside perspective? The medicine in and of itself, like anytime I had a call for it, I would take it on a very personal level or take it out to the forest or something like that where I could have a good interpersonal work with it. So it just depends on because once you get into groups and stuff like that, it can be a whole other story, right? So
Hmm. With the
ceremony
energies
hearing.
going on.
Yep,
Yeah,
yep.
we've got enough with his own shadows. We don't need to deal with every motherfucker else. Like, when you've got
I know,
literally a
exactly.
wall full of shadows, and you're like, oh, damn, no, thank you. No, thank you.
Yeah, no, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. Yeah. So,
But then on the other respect, they can be beautiful
for
ceremonies.
sure.
Like,
Absolutely.
we retreated in Spain and we had a microdose ceremony in group, and it was beautiful. It was actually, I was facilitating there, and it was absolutely beautiful. And everyone was of the right vibration. I think that's the key. I think when
Another
you've
one too.
got
Yep.
facilitating where you've kind of orchestrated the energies to everyone being in alignment to, when you preemptively set that intention, so the space is already set for that experience. And so that experience was such a divine flow. And yeah, everyone's energy and group was aligned with each other, and there was no, shadows or anything like that. It was very powerful. But I
Yeah.
definitely think that without that, I don't know if I'd struggle with the word shaman for myself because, it wasn't something I ever like went in and trained to do.
Sure.
And a lot of the other things I kind of consciously learn in my human. Whereas that, I just kind of figured it out along the way. It was just like, all right, these guys are doing this, they're not doing it right. Let's kind of host a little group and let me set the
Right.
space, let me
Right.
protect the space, let me put some crystals out over you, let me
Yep.
make sure I'm awake to watch them and da da da. And then it just became like someone else was like, oh, my shout. I was like, oh, think I do that actually, but it wasn't, I didn't even know what
Yep.
that word even meant. It was something I'd been doing for a year or so, but not even knowing what it meant. And that was even sometimes I was explaining and holding space for someone else's journeys before I'd even ever touched certain plant medicines. And so it was definitely an inner calling, of
Totally.
translating and holding that space between worlds. And I think a lot of us are that are of that more conscious, I hate these ego words, but you know what I'm saying, have more awareness in the human from the remembrance of their soul. Because some of us do, and yeah, I suppose it's just like we were going back to the original point, surrendering that you are exactly where you need to be, learning what you need to learn in the way you need to learn it, in the vibes, and if you get in the call for plant medicine, it'll probably come more than once. It'll probably come in multiple ways and mention, and, you might see it on there and you might see the imagery somewhere. It'll be brought to you for a reason if you're meant to be drawn towards it. So just have an open heart.
Yep, yep. Have an open heart, be really in tune with yourself. And honestly, too, I'm gonna just bring in like if it's something that's super exciting too. because that's going to bring in the right vibes of people. I've found myself like if it's super exciting and you're really heart-based, then the right vibrations of the medicine
Yeah.
will come into the space.
Finding people to journey with either that are aligned in the physical or the spiritual realms too is it is like you say, that excitement is part of it, you know.
Yep.
No matter what your age, we all have an inner child within that, like we've been talking about, that is allowed to have fun. Some might let theirs out more than others, like me. Some might be still working on that. And, you know, like I said, I do, my inner child very much has a place, but she has kind of, it's on certain time schedule, I'm not going to lie. And that's what's the problem. You know, she exists and I fully connect with her in the spiritual realms, but in the physical body, it is on different time schedules, especially being a mum. It's just one of them things right now. And I'm
Yeah.
surrendering to that. That's exactly how it's meant to be right now as well. And I'm aware on what things might be a little bit uncomfortable that I'm working through. So yeah, I think that's all part of the journey is just trusting and going with it.
It is. It is. And for me, I would say at least over this last year, it was allowing that inner child to be fully present and
Mm-hmm.
letting the excitement be there. Because I'm a very like excited person, and that was the part that I slammed down a lot. And so is my inner child. So to have her be front and be like, I'm just excited to get up today and it's an exciting day, I'm gonna draw. I'm like, okay. And sometimes that takes us into very emotional places. But even with that, and I go deep with it,
Yeah.
there's still her being present, being like, but I'm still excited about my existence right now, and that makes it really beautiful for me because that was something I shut down for such a long time.
Yeah, that's really beautiful, actually. And I think that gives me a different perspective on it because I think that's what I'm grieving right now. Literally was sat there yesterday in the bathroom thinking, I so miss the days where I woke up and painted, where I just woke up and painted because I
Yeah,
felt like
yeah,
painting, you know, because now it's like I have to schedule free time. And so when that free time comes, I might not want to fucking paint. You know, it might not be a thing my inner child wants to do then or my inner
right.
self wants to do. And so I've lost that ability to have flexibility and freedom or to just do my own thing that my own inner child wants to do. I have to obviously tailor to two other little tiny children that have bigger
For sure.
prioritizing needs. But I feel like my inner child is really grieving right now of not having that free time because maybe I didn't have the um expressive fun, if you will, in like a silly way, but I was very free in that way, like get up and just do what I felt like doing because I felt like doing it, you know, and I loved to do that. And I very much grieve that at the moment. It's all structure and routine, which my 3 year ago self would cringe at very much. I'm not a structured and routine kind of guy, but it's the only thing keeping me sane right now. So I'm just rolling with it.
Yeah, 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 that makes sense. And also much appreciated for like where you're at. I just love it when you express yourself because it is the
I'm just like, yeah, it is what it is. But
that's
it's
where
true
I'm at.
because,
I really fucking hate
yeah,
routines.
yeah. Oh, I hate it. I actually, anyone that knows me will laugh at that because I am the least routine and structured person. And I have to so swallow my ego when I have to admit how much it's benefiting me right now because it is really benefiting me having a routine, knowing when I'm going to be getting time to work, when I'm going to be getting time to have certain, you know, plans, making a lot of plans and having a lot of things on the agenda is good for me right now because if I just have too much unplanned time, it feels overwhelming and it feels really like overwhelming to the nervous system. You know, two babies crying, dogs barking, stuck in the house, can't get out. It just gets overwhelming. So having a routine and structure and plans in place mean that I wake up with more of an intention and I wake up with more of a focus and then I'm more productive because I feel like because there's so much to do, I just get really bad ADHD burnout and don't do anything instead of just stressing out about not doing all. And so having the list, having the organisation, having the routine, all them things, it really, I hate to admit, but really is helping and it really is working. So I'm open to admitting that Fee's getting older. I feel like if I didn't have a new baby, there would be far more time than I was having last year, you know. So the time will return. And I guess it's just being comfortable with knowing that things are okay to kind of come and go.
Sure.
And there is no set, like, you have to do it this way. You can let that routine of being free and doing your spiritual stuff and meditating all the time and astral prep and blah, 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 that can go for a little bit, but it will return if it's meant to. And it's
For
not
sure. Yeah.
hanging on to things, you know?
Yeah, yep. I think that's another piece to all this is like, can you detach from a routine
Mm,
or a habit or what you think should be how things should
mhm.
go with the flow because things do they enter and they leave all the time. Like sometimes I want to have more structure, sometimes I don't. A lot of times my body really loves to create, so if I get up and I'm like I would like to work today and it's all creation, then I can get the work. I just love it. I love doing clients.
Yeah.
I love getting stuff done. I love getting stuff finished, and that's fantastic. And then there are days where like I'm dead to the world.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
I'm like,
And it's so hard to show up.
like it's just
Truly.
not gonna happen today.
No, no. And I think that's the point when you do energy work, though. Like, people don't realize this is not just, I mean, I'm sure it's hard to do a normal job, like a customer service job, because I did it myself. It is hard, but I think it's a different navigation trying to do energy work when your energy is whack. Like, I just refuse to do it
Nope,
because, simple fact,
I do it.
I'm not putting anything on anybody else. I'm not opening up any more for myself. I'm not adding any more to my plate to transmute. You can all feck off. I'm going to just deal with this on my own. And
Yep.
that, like you say, I think about rescheduling it and they end up rescheduling with me. And I'm like, thanks, universe, because
They will
it's
do
a
that.
higher self knowing.
Yep.
Higher self knowing, like I'm not in the right place. And it's happened so many times with me and you when we've had a video scheduled and one of us is like, oh, it's just not working today. And then
Yep.
in reflection, it just wasn't energetically aligned that day for the
Yep.
right vibe. And that's exactly how it's meant to be. And that again is a different layer of trust because it's
That is
knowing
sure.
that if we were in like a professional world, it's like, oh, well, I've cancelled or I've rescheduled a few times. It looks unprofessional. But when you work with energy, you have a knowing that it's like, yeah, it's cool. Well, we'll work next
Something's
week.
gonna work or something's not gonna work. You're not, and we don't force it. That's the thing with me too. I'm like, I'm not gonna force something that's not in alignment for myself. That's not
Mm-hmm.
where I want to be in my current existence. But allowing
Yeah.
free flow, I do that with my clients. There are days where I'm like, nope, or they cancel, or like sometimes I'll have like a whole week where I'm like, I know that's a week off that I need to like recover from something. I won't have people book, and then I'll just
Mm-hmm.
so I just go with the flow of the universe and allow that to be. If
Nice.
I'm not in a space to do energetic work, I'm going in my cave, everybody. Don't know when I'm coming out. So
And I miss being able to do that. Not gonna lie, I do miss that ability at the moment. Sometimes I desperately need rest, but the physical body isn't allowed with the two tiny humans. And definitely not having a village, I'm noticing it way more than usual, I think. I don't think I ever really thought about it before having kids. Like, I definitely thought about living in community and villages and thinking, like, oh, wouldn't it be nice? But man, I don't think I realised how deconstructed society truly is, without
right.
a village and support. And, I'm sure there is other mums watching this, and you are not alone if you are also struggling. There is nothing wrong with you if you find it very hard sometimes, or if you're very overwhelmed, or if you're not the mum you thought you'd be or the mum you want to be. Like, this society is not in any way set up to support mothers, to help create the village, to help create the structure of love and soft energy for us to rest. Just that thought of being able to retreat to a cave. I think every mum knows that when you're sick, when you're mentally not well, or when you're processing, like, there is so much need to be able to just heal. And yet somehow we just kind of learn to heal on the go, stood up, just figuring it out along the way, and it's a really weird world being a mum. It's a beautiful one. It's a very weird one, very lonely, very different, and a world that no one really understands because no one really talks about it. So it's very quiet, and so that's why I wanted to mention that if you are feeling like that at the moment, because I think everyone's feeling overwhelmed. As we've mentioned, this theme of the video is trusting through the overwhelm, surrendering through it. But I think as a mum, I'm not comparing it and I'm not adding it to anyone else's thing, but just when you've got your own shit going on and then other humans shit as well, literally most times as well, no joke. And then you've got all these different layers. It's like, wow, this is a total different level of burnout I've never experienced before. And so don't feel guilt, shame, anything else. If you are struggling to navigate this overwhelming chapter right now, reach out to any support system that you have. Get outside, ring a friend. Parenting in nature is always less overwhelming. So get to the forest, get to the field, find some nature and take the kids there if you have your little babies, because that really does help. It's an overwhelming time for everybody. You're not alone. That's basically my point. Don't think you're alone if you're struggling right now.
Thank you so much for that message. And I'm not pretending to know what y'all are going through. I don't have any kids. I've had partners who have, and I'm like, kudos to you too. You're top, man.
It's a funny old human experience. Oh, it is, isn't it? Like, it's one of the most beautifulest things ever. Like, there's no love on earth quite matches up to it, in my opinion. But also, then there is like no challenge on earth that quite matches up to it. So it's kind of like the extremes of both balled into one at the extremely fast paced time that you feel like you have to cherish every millisecond and not have a second for yourself. So it's just the weirdest experience, but in the most beautiful way. But yeah, motherhood. Have fun.
And for those of you who aren't mothers, and how I perceive this, because I really have a lot of respect for you guys, and it's always a big learning lesson for me. I'm always personally, if I have the energy and space for it, asking how I can help, because I have roommates, I have dear friends
Mm.
that have kids, and all of them are single. So, like, even a random, like, I appreciate that you're a mom, I see you and I love you, like, shifts the frequency really quickly.
Yes.
And, like, you know,
Wow,
like,
it does.
from my perspective, you guys really like it. It helps.
No, yeah, it really does. Like, I was out the other day. I had two push chairs because I just did. I was getting one's a car seat and I had the other push chair. And I was trying to like push the push chair, and then I had the baby in the sling. And this woman just looked at me and she came and she tapped my shoulder and she was like, "You're doing an amazing job. You should be so proud." And I was like,
Oh,
"Thanks, like thanks, man." Like, I really needed that. Well, it's been a nice session today. I've
yeah,
genuinely enjoyed sometimes
fantastic.
not having. Yeah, sometimes it's nice to just flow with the energies. You know, we had a little bit of an idea of what we were talking about, but sometimes it's nice to just talk about real stuff too, real life, real
Yep.
things going on, you know, because I had a feeling maybe other people are experiencing this burnout, overwhelm, frustration, feeling guilty about feeling that way, and, you know, just all the feels right now. And yeah, so like I said, just want to kind of mention that a little bit. Maybe we could do a little I've forgotten the
We're
word.
gonna
Heart
bring it in,
exercise.
everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Let's call it that. Let's call it a bring it in. We're gonna do a bring it in now. Well, let's do that. Do
Yeah, let's do that.
you want me to do it, or are you doing it, or we're both doing it? Just going with the flow.
Just gonna go with the
I'll
flow.
let you.
I'll start.
I'll
Maybe
let you
you can
start. Yeah,
you can
you
close
feel more ready than
it. All
me.
right. Okay. Everybody just get very seated and settled and take a few really big deep breaths. Just get some life force into your body with those breaths all the way down out your feet. And just getting heart centered for a moment, focusing in that space. And also just giving yourself a second to ask your body, your system, your soul what it needs right now in the moment. If it's feeling overwhelmed or stressed or there's so much uncomfortable in the unknown, what do you need right now? Good. And as you're doing that, I'm just going to ask that everybody do an intentional callback of all of their energy from all places, spaces, times, dimensions, back to the point of creation. Just gathering all aspects of yourself to come close to you in a way that's with ease and grace and what your body can handle so that we can fill your cup. Good. And a deep breath into that space. And I'm going to pass it on to you, Anya.
Beautiful. So I want us now to just continue breathing into this space, just allowing all that beautiful work Z's just allowed us to be open to process through the human body. And I would like us to take all background noises, anything that's around us as part of this experience, knowing that we are here today to surrender to the unknown and surrender to all the different navigations that this human experience brings us. And I want us to focus into a time where we do feel overwhelmed, burnt out. And I want you to find the peace from an external perspective that you need in that time. Find the peace and put a colour to it. that may be blue, green, yellow. Attach a colour to that beautiful frequency of peace and calm. So anytime that you feel that overwhelm, that stress, that burnt out energy, you can invite that colour to come down from the top of your head and into your physical body, into your heart and fingertips, spreading around each and every part of your body, each and every cell down to your toes. Just allowing that frequency to be fully encompassed in the human body with a true vibration of serenity. So anytime you are feeling overwhelmed, I want you to think about a time where you felt overwhelmed today, yesterday, and I want you to give your previous self an overflow of that energy, of that calm. Help them through that moment in time with more ease and more joy. And now I want you to ask your higher self to have that colour on standby and on remembrance for any time that you feel overwhelmed, burnt out, struggling or stressed. And I want you to allow that colour to come in and allow it to stabilise the frequency of the human body. And remember that you are not alone, you are never alone. You walk with an army of spirit, loved ones, animals, angels, guides. You are a powerful being of creation. And it's time that your humans started to remember that. And when you're ready, I want you to allow your soul to just slowly drift back down into the human experience. Going back down into the body and wiggling the fingers and the toes. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. Just allowing a slow integration back into the human experience. And giving the body a little wiggle when you come round and maybe getting a drink if you need one. And just allowing that frequency to remain there throughout the rest of the day and whenever you may need it.
Yeah, that was beautiful. Thank you so much.
Beautiful. No, thank you. That was really nice.
Yeah, as always, take a look at your own perspective and question.
Question everything.
Question everything. What is the best for you and what feels in most alignment for you. So we love you guys so
Beautiful.
much.